G'day everyone, and welcome to another top 5 album review video. If you haven't been to my channel yet, please like, subscribe. I've done 3 of these already. I've done the top 5 UK, I've done the top 5 US albums, I've done the top 5 Aussie albums, and today, as promised in my last video, I'm doing the top 5 greatest guitar playing albums of all time. Opinion based, my top 5. And I thought on the way to do this video in the car, I thought this is going to be pretty easy. I know what top 5 is. Until I went through my collection and gone, oh God, this is incredibly difficult. I have left out so many great artists. It is ridiculous. I hope Rick Beato was very pleased with my top 5 list. He should be. It's an amazing list, but what I've left out. So this time I'm doing something a little bit different. I should really be doing a top 10 to squeeze everyone in. I'm going to give honourable mentions to the ones that I've missed out. So honourable mentions that missed out from my top 5 albums. Joe Satriani is not on my top 5. This is Not of This Earth. There's another great album called Surfing with the Alien that should have been my top. Joe Satriani, I couldn't find the cover, but an omission out of the top 5 should be in there. This guy, David Torn, what a great guitar player. I think this is one of the debut albums or his second album, not sure, but what a lineup. Have a look at that. Mark Isham, Tony Lev and Bill Bruford. And this is a great album, Cloud About Mercury. If you haven't heard David Torn, suggest you get his first few albums, have a listen to it. He's a bit different, a little bit, not everybody's to everybody's taste, but what a great guitar player this bloke is. And that is particularly a great album. My God, I couldn't even squeeze George Benson in there. Breezin', fantastic album. Give it a listen to if you have not managed to do so. These artists keep getting better. It's unbelievable who I've left out of my top 5. John Scofield couldn't make it. This is a great album, Blue Matter. Give that a listen to. Played with all the greats. Miles Davis, guitar player. If you're playing with Miles, you've got to be somewhere in the top 10 greatest guitar players of all time. I can't believe how this guy couldn't make my top 5. Alan Holdsworth, that's a terrific album if you haven't heard it. There's another album that I had, oh yeah, this one. That's really my favourite Alan Holdsworth album, Metal Fatigue being, you should have a listen to that particular song. My God, what a player. No longer with us. Met him in airport. Funny story about Alan Holdsworth. Went and saw him play live in Melbourne, and the very next day met him and got to talk to him at Melbourne Airport as he was flying out to do his next gig somewhere. So I was very lucky to meet him, very lucky to have a chat with him. Very blessed, no longer with us, but what a great player. Put him on your playlist if you are a guitar player and into kind of that jazz fusion stuff. Can't believe how that album couldn't make the top 5. Eric Johnson and Tones. That was my first introduction to Eric Johnson. What a guitar player. Still putting out great stuff. Give him a listen. I could not go without this guy, Trevor Rabin, giving him an honourable mention. This is one of his solo albums just after, I think, leaving Yes, or to go on and do some solo stuff. I'm not sure, but this is a fantastic album. He's just put an album out about 6 months ago too, so get onto that and have a listen. This guy's amazing, and if you're a Yes fan, you'll love all his solo stuff as well. Trevor Rabin, and of course I've had to put Jimmy in there with Electric Ladyland. You could not go put a honourable mention without putting Jimmy in there. I haven't put in stuff like Van Halen. I probably should have grabbed one of the records there and put him in an honourable mention. Of course I should. Any Van Halen stuff. There's just, Steve Vai, massive fan of Steve Vai. Eric Clapton couldn't make it, so that gives you an idea of how difficult this is. And you're probably thinking, well, the top 5's got to be bloody good for those artists not to go in. And it is. It's really good, but probably not to everybody's taste. Again, not to everybody's taste. But my number 5 spot, let's get straight into it, goes to Steve Morse. Steve Morse Band. and Steve Morse. This album, Stand Up, makes my top 5. Was my introductory album to Steve Morse. Saw a recent interview with him on the Rick Beato channel. Go to it, have a look. He has some great stuff on there, great interviews with a lot of these great guitar players. He's an amazing guitar player. Played with Deep Purple for a while too, and there's a story about that. But yeah, my introduction to Steve Morse. Love all his stuff. Go and give this a listen. Go and give his other stuff a listen. He is an incredible guitar player. My number 4 spot, you can't put this artist, you can argue with me all you like. This guy has to make a top 5 in anybody's album reviews of guitar players. It's Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck, there's lots of albums that you could put in the top 5. This has to be in your top 5. There is no argument from anybody. Don't argue with me on it. This is Jeff Beck. Guitar Shop makes my number 4 album. Just incredible guitar player. This was chosen really because it's one of the modern. It came out in the 80s, but it kind of transitioned from that 70s into the 80s. More modern feel, more different techniques that he was coming up with and playing. And this is some great stuff on here. Three-piece band. Love the kind of stripped back stuff that is in this album. Jeff Beck, no argument, has to be number 3. Number 4, not number 3, number 4. Getting into my number 3, introduced, and the reason this guy, Larry Carlton, makes my number 3 is that I was introduced to this album through Larry Carlton, introduced to Larry Carlton through this album. So it makes my number 3. I was coming in here listening to some stuff and going, just refreshing myself with albums, going, should it be in my top 5 or not? But it has to be in my top 5 because, I was introduced to this guy as a 13, 14-year-old. I love that kind of LA jazz influence type stuff with him and through, his session playing with Steely Dan and that kind of stuff. So this album resonates with me as a kid, has stuck with me for a long time. Gave this another listen to in the car on the way here and thought, yep, it's going to get in my number 3. The album cover alone. That album cover alone, as a greatest guitar playing album covers of all time, has to be in the top 5. So Rick Beato again has interviewed this guy. Great interview. Go to that channel, have a look. But this album, absolutely brilliant. The first song on the album, you just put it on and go, all right, I'm hooked. Larry Carlton in anybody's top 5. Same with this guy as in the number 2 album. Has to be in the top 5 guitar players of all time, if not the greatest guitar player of all time. There is no argument here with anybody. So the greatest guitar player probably of all time is Pat Metheny. But he hasn't made my number 1. So you're probably sitting there thinking, who in God's name is going to make the number 1 spot? And I'm not going to give that away right now. You're just going to have to hang on for another couple of minutes to find out who this is. Let me talk Pat Metheny. That's the Pat Metheny Group album. It's not my number 2 album, but it's my best favourite album from the Pat Metheny Group. I was lucky enough to see Pat twice. Again, Rick Beato's channel he's interviewed this guy, and that must have been a hell of a mind blow for him. But this is my favourite Pat Metheny album, Works, and the reason it gets there, it has iconic Pat songs on it, like it's got Travels, it's got James, it's got just so many great songs. There's only 7 songs on the album, but it's for me, along with the Travels live album, which you should get, which made my top 5 US albums of all time. There's no argument with Pat being in anybody's top 5. Just pick an album and put it in there. It could be anything, but for me, it's this one, number 2. Brings me to the number 1 spot. Drum roll, please. And this again will have a lot of people debating and wondering whether I've lost my marbles, but I did not battle with this one little bit. Again, it is opinion based. It's what resonated with me, and it's what's resonated with me my entire life, and it is Lee Ritenour. Lee Ritenour makes my number 1 spot. That's a great album. It's not my number 1 album from Rio, give it that acoustic version of one of his albums, which is absolutely brilliant. I loved this album, Lee Ritenour, Feel the Night. Again, late 70s. That LA jazz influence. Again, another session player for Steely Dan, those that love Steely Dan. But Lee, I've seen Lee twice. I was lucky enough to meet Lee as well and get my photo taken with him at Bird's Basement. Just such an, how many times have I seen him? Maybe 3 times. I actually saw him at in Richmond as well, but Bird's Basement twice. I think I saw him there. Probably one of my favourite artists. But this is the #1 album. There it is. Captain Fingers makes the #1. Please, somebody go and let Lee Ritenour know that he has made the #1 greatest guitar playing albums of all time. He's #1. Somebody go and get this video and tell him that he has made the #1 list of the greatest guitar playing albums. This came out in 1977. I was in grade 4 when I first heard this album, and it changed everything for me as a 10-year-old. It made me understand music. It made me just really, I'm not listening to kind of the top 40 hits of the day. I'm listening to this stuff. Put on the opening track, Captain Fingers, and tell me that that's not one of the greatest guitar songs you will ever hear. Along with some amazing bass playing from Abraham Labora, I think his name was Abraham. Just that pop and stuff. He's pioneering that stuff. Easily, no question. There was no argument. There was no battling inside my head. This is my #1 album. Always has been. Always will be. Nothing will ever knock it off for me. Captain Fingers, Lee Ritenour. I don't think anybody, there's so many artists, but please don't try and argue with me. Put it on and have a listen and give it a go. So there you go. That is my top 5, everyone. Give me a like, give me a subscribe. I do it for fun, obviously, but I do like everybody to jump on and watch it, and please give me your opinion, give me a comment, let me know your top 5 or your favourite top guitarist album of all time. But it's good to again bring you another one of these videos. Love to you all, and I will see you again soon with another top 5. Don't know what that will be, but it won't be far away. Catch us later. Bye.